finished my English degree in 2014 and I was looking for jobs. I applied for loads of jobs, didn't get anything. I'd been working at Sainsbury's for 15 years and I was stuck, basically. So one of my best friends in London, she was telling me about this access to health and social care course, you know, and you can get onto nursing from it. So I thought, I'm going to try that. So I went on that course. I did really well, really enjoyed it, did some voluntary work, worked really well, got some good grades. And so I applied for the nursing courses. I applied for 3 nursing courses, 2 undergraduate, 1 master's level, all of them based within the sort of West and East Midlands because of commuting with the kids. So I didn't even get an interview for the 2. Got an interview at the University of Nottingham, went for the interview, passed the tests, got offered the place. That was in, I think, September 2015. So started the course January 2016. I was so pleased with myself. I was doing my masters. My mum had been going on at me for ages about doing my masters, and I was just like, you know, it's such a waste of money. But this was fully funded, so it was absolutely brilliant. So I started on the course. I think we had 8 weeks in the university, something like that. About 8 weeks before we went out into placement. So everything was absolutely fine, made a few friends on the course, everything was fine. Then we got our placements through and we were all excited. You get like the email, you log in, shows you where you're going. I had Ripley Community Hospital, so I thought, I've never even heard of that, so I Googled it. And one of the first things that came up was like that it was like the UK's most racist town. So I was like, right, I told Mum, she was like, you know, oh my gosh, you can't go. I was like, no, it's, you know, it's probably changed. I think the article was quite old. So I went and yeah, it was not good at all. It was really, really bad. The whole thing, from start to end, from the patients to the staff, the whole thing was awful. Within, I think, the first week, the patient came in, we were doing care for him, he was assigned to me, and then there was this whole thing of he didn't want me because I was black. So the nurses said, you know, like, well, if you just like don't care for him, like he doesn't want you to, so you'll have to have this patient instead. And I was just so hurt by that. I just think, you know, it's the NHS. You don't get to make that choice. I'm here to care for you. I'm going to do it properly, and you don't want me to do that. And it was just the fact that I think what was more hurtful than anything was the fact that no one stuck up for me. I think for me, that was the difficult part about that. And then from then it just continued to go downhill. With the staff, with more patients, you know, the curtain twitchers when I used to park my car on the road in the morning. I remember I had a patient and they said to me, they touched me and said, oh, we hear that there's a black nurse in working in this hospital, you know, it had been going round this like community. And I'm thinking, it's me, like, you know, I only wear my tail on weekends. It's just absolutely ridiculous. You know, and just all the comments in the staff room, you know, I'd go and sit down and the person would move and go and sit somewhere else. It was really, really, really difficult. That was an 8-week placement. I went back, I told the university, I filled in at the end of each placement, you give them like a little review, and they wouldn't publish mine because, you know, I'd made negative remarks apparently, so that couldn't be published. That couldn't go back to that placement area. They said that they'd have a meeting with me, but all of the meetings that they were trying to arrange were, you know, they were not times that I could do, and they know that I can't do those times because that's when I've got lessons, that's when I'm on placement. So, you know, it was just setting me up to fail from the very, very beginning. And so I thought that was like a one-off incident. So I said to myself, right, okay, if I get another placement like that, I'm not going to go. I'm going to demand a placement within the hospital. It's got to be better within the hospital. It wasn't. So I was on a few wards in the hospital. The worst one was the surgical assessment unit. That was, it was awful. I had a mentor. She hated me from the first day she set eyes on me. She absolutely hated me. And she just used to, it was just the constant sort of prodding with her. She would, she'd set me pieces of work to be due in the next day. I was working 7 till 7 with a 25-mile drive back to Birmingham to then go and pick my kids up, to then do a 2,000 words on pancreatitis. She'd just constantly do that, and she'd say, if you don't do that, I'm going to fail you. If you don't do that, I'm not going to sign you off. You're not going to be a nurse if you don't do it. Just everything. I met a student on there, another black student, and, it was just to see how we were treated in comparison to how everyone else was treated. It was just awful. And the other students, he lived in Leicester. We both had real long journeys to go home. Remember the one day the weather was awful and they sent all the white students home who lived around the corner. Me and him had to stay till the end. They all got to go. We stayed. During that placement as well, I was on the placement and I'd gone outside and I'd checked my phone, went outside, checked my phone, I had an email from the university and it was like, dear Zoe, very disappointed to hear that you've absconded from your placement. I know that you were having problems because I'd complained, obviously. This is very, very unprofessional. So I'm like, someone from the ward had phoned the university to say that I'd walked out, gone on my break. They'd said I'd absconded. It was just, and then I was under investigation. And obviously I had all the signed timesheets to show. To this day, I don't know who did that. It was just ridiculous. And then the apology that you get, it was just literally an email with one line, they're really sorry, they're going to review their off-duty process. So yeah, that was really, 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 really difficult. So much happened on there. So much happened, and then I was constantly phoning the university, emailing them because you had a link tutor who's meant to help you, and every time they'd come in, they'd deny it, and then I'd go for a meeting with my tutor, and he'd turn around to me and say, look Zoe, this is Derby, it's not Birmingham, this is Derby. It's not like it is in Birmingham. You come from a multicultural city, you're a student nurse, you've got to accept that you're right on the bottom. That's never been my life. I'm never going to be right at the bottom, and I think the thing for me is I obviously went into it when I was a little bit older. I wasn't an 18-year-old. I was already, 30 years old with my own kids, my own house, my own car. So you're not going to treat me like that, unfortunately. So as time went on and the more and more I started to complain, the grades were just going down, 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 down every time. And then I'd ask for some help. Okay, you failed that piece of work. Can I have some help? Yeah, can you come at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning? Well, I can't. I'm on a 7 till 7. Yeah, it was just really difficult. It got to the point where I was going in the shower every morning, clumps of my hair were falling out, my nose was bleeding every day. It was just absolutely ridiculous. It was at the point where you just don't eat because I'm going to go into the staff room and everyone's going to walk out or everyone's going to stop talking as soon as I go in there. And so it was just the most horrible, isolating experience ever. No one to stick up for you. And I just don't understand why, when I've got a problem about racism, I'm constantly having to go to a white person to report it and they're going to tell me whether that person's been racist to me or not. The other student who I met on SAU, he was a great guy and he actually helped me. So I had an appeal. I did a complaint about what had gone on the surgical assessment unit, and they upheld it partly, the university did, because they actually terminated my studies 3 or 4 times. They chucked me out and then I got to go back. So on that occasion, so it was me and him just used to, on the break time, we just couldn't stand it. We'd go and stand outside in the rain for an hour under like a subway because we just couldn't be in there. And so he actually ended up helping me because I'd been taken off the course. I tried to do an extenuating circumstances because I'd obviously already reported the bullying that was going on. He actually backed me up on that, but he did leave the course. He didn't finish the course. He left because they were worse to him. He backed me up, but the only reason why I won that case was the fact that, bit naughty thing that I did, there was a white student on the ward and she'd seen everything that was going on. And I don't know why, but she was like messaging me like, oh my God, I can't believe how so-and-so's treating you. I can't believe that. Oh, she's just come and said this about you. And so I had this whole thing. And the university were like, well, he'd back me up, but that wasn't enough because he's black. And so they said, have you got anything else? I said, well, I've got these messages off this girl. They said, well, you're going to have to ask for a permission to use them. And I thought, she's going to say no, isn't she? So, but I asked her anyway. It erupted into this massive argument. And I still used the messages anyway, and they let me back in. But as for the other students, it was a very... Their approach to it, it was just... You see, I think the problem with me is it's the fact that I think being mixed race, I am used to my mum. She kind of, she's got that white privilege to kind of push me like, no, they shouldn't be treating you like this. No, you can't act like... So I can't lay down and take it. So it's very, very difficult for me. So a lot of the black students were like, shut up, why are you doing this? Like, why are you making a scene? Like, just, you're not even, you're mixed race. Why are you doing this? I can't help it. But none of them said anything apart from that other student. And I feel like the only reason why he was empowered to say something is because he'd left the course by the time. So he could say, yeah, this is what it was like. This person was doing this. This is how it is. But as I said, that still wasn't enough for them. So work was never allocated fairly. It was me and this other black guy. We were doing, we were like cleaning down the rooms, we were cleaning the blinds, we were sanitising, flipping the mattresses, all of that, washing the patients. And a lot of the time, the white students would be in the staff room or in the office eating pizza with their feet up. It was just ridiculous, The girl who, had been messaging me and I shared the comments, she'd be let to go home at like 3 o'clock. We're doing 7 till 7 and they'd let her go at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They'd just say, oh, you don't need to be here. It was just ridiculous, the inequality in terms of workload everywhere. But as soon as, I even got close to sitting down, it was like, oh, right, you need to go and do this. You need to go and do that. Breaks as well, just ridiculous, You didn't get your breaks, and then you say about not getting your break, and then nurses don't get the break. I'm supernumerary, so I'm not in your head count, so I can actually have my breaks. I'm entitled to have my breaks. I've got ages to drive here and back, and then you want me to give you my break as well. It's not going to happen. So no, work was not distributed fairly ever in any of the placements whatsoever. I'd actually have other white student nurses telling me what to do, so the nurses would actually get them to tell me what to do, even if they were like in a lower year than me or they were on like the undergraduate course. They'd be telling me what we're doing. Every time I complained, they'd fail the work. Then I'd fail the work once because you can only fail it twice. So I failed it, asked for help. They offer their help at a time that they know you can't do constantly. Or, oh, I've got no, appointments this week, but, I've only got till next week to get it in. So then I did it again, failed it. The grade actually went down, which is what I don't get. The grade was less the second time than the first time. So then I did an extenuating circumstances. They rejected it. So I went. Then I got back in. Then, because of the appeal, I won the appeal and the complaint, so I got to come back in. Then the coursework, then I think I went back on again. Then there was an argument as to whether it was, if I was to do that piece of coursework again, is it a first or a second attempt? It was, I was just bouncing in and out, in and out. It was ridiculous. I don't know if it's like that in all settings. So it was Royal Derby Hospital. I don't know if it's still called that. But the University of Nottingham, their health sciences is upstairs. So the people you're working with, obviously to, teach nursing, you are a nurse. So I'm complaining potentially about their colleagues. So they're never going to stick up for me. That's probably their friend that they go down to the pub with on a Friday. It's just ridiculous. It's just, it just goes round and round and round, and they just close ranks on you, and then that's it. You're not, it's just a no, and they know it's a no, and they knew they was never going to let me finish that course. That was my punishment. I raised everything. I raised everything, 1,000,001 times, and it just became that, you just become that problem constantly. It was just, it just became a problem. They just avoided you, take ages to respond to your emails. It just, nothing was dealt with properly. None of the complaints, none of what I had to say. It was just always, you need to just get on with it, Zoe. So the second placement, so that was a placement where you had to do a part of it, and then you had to go back. So you had to go back, do the surgical assessment unit, go back to university, and then go back to that placement. And I said, please don't send me back. Please don't send me back. And they said, no, I think it's the best thing for you to do, for you to go back. It would be very unprofessional if you weren't to go back to that placement. It's beneficial for you. Well, it was exactly the same. It was just ridiculous. And then I ended up hurting my back. We had a patient and we had to move them, and it was just poor manual handling. Hurt my back. I was there. I still stayed there for, I think, a couple of days. And then she started moaning again. She was like, oh, Zoe, you need to go off sick if you can't do this and you can't do that. But I'd really, really hurt my back. So then I went off sick, and I was off for I even had a doctor's note. I was off for maybe 1 or 2 weeks, had a doctor's note, and I came back, and she wouldn't speak to me. She just ignored me. And I was like, oh my God. And then finally she spoke to me about 3 hours later, and she was like, I am not happy with you. And I was like, why? And she was like, why have you been off sick? And she was like, you are meant to phone me every day that you're off sick. You have gone against the policy. And I was like, I'm sure that's not the policy, that I need to phone you every day if I'm off sick. If I can phone you every day if I'm off sick, I'm not sick. I just probably want to catch up with you. So then I had to go back to the university and say, what's the policy? No, the policy is that you let us know and we let them know. So then that was not, but it was just this, just round and round and round, and just never, ever, ever getting an apology. So I stuck it out. She signed me off in the end, but you have a book, and it's like you can use that for interviews and stuff. It's got all your experiences, all your feedback, really nice. Mine was perfect so far. So then she had to start writing her comments, implying that I'm incompetent and all of this. So she writes it in this official book. And I'm thinking, well, if I'm incompetent, how can you have signed me off? So then I had to complain to the university again. So then they wrote this letter, and it was 2 sentences long, and they just stapled it in. But if I go for a job, I'm nosy. I'm going to just lift that piece of paper up and see what it says. It says that I'm incompetent and I'm inconsistent, which is not the case. So the university, they wrote this letter and it was like, please ignore the comments on this page. The student has submitted a complaint and this has been partly upheld for the removal of these comments from her OAR book, which was what it was called. So then that lasted quite long, and then I finished it. It was over. I was just so fed up of it. It had just consumed so much time. The bouncing back and forward of the complaining constantly. It just gives you a headache in the end. So then I said in my head, I thought, the next placement has got to be community. If it's not community, I'm not going. And it was community. So it was really nice in the community, actually, to be honest. I liked it because I could be autonomous. So I just had it in my head, I'm just going to, whatever goes on, I'm just going to do exactly what they say, and then I can just be on my own. So I just did exactly what they said, and then I was just in my car on my own going to patients' houses, and it was brilliant. It was really, really good just to be on my own. But yeah, it was quite strange. On one of the placements, I met a girl, I'm actually still friends with her, Polish girl, and actually seeing patients be like quite racist to her as well. Actually, it was interesting in terms of like going into their homes and what they had to say to and about her sometimes when she wasn't there. But no, on the whole, the community was really, really, really a positive experience for me. I really, really enjoyed it. What I enjoyed about it actually was not having someone breathing down my neck. Actually, really, it was nice to just be able to go, I can actually just do my job now without people, just chastising me for no reason. That's what I really enjoyed about the community, to be honest. By that time, I really did know what I was doing, and I was allowed to, have my own caseload. And I just found that where I was placed, it was a little bit, I think it was more of an affluent area, so it was less of an issue, is what I felt about it. And they were very nice, the staff there. They were really, they were really good to me. They included me. There was me and the Polish girl. There weren't any other, black or ethnic minority staff, but they were really, really nice people, And when I left, no, I ended up having to getting taken off the course again at that point, because they'd let me come back whilst waiting for the extenuating circumstances, and they even tried to fight my corner, but it just didn't go anywhere at all. So then after that I went, and then I ended up being able to come back, and I went to Ilkeston and I was with their district nurses, and they were really nice as well. It was really good at that point. Things were, looking up. So I was working with a Polish lady who I'm still friends with. She was really nice. She was really, really good at her job. A lot of the time we'd get put together, and that was the one time when I didn't mind having to work with someone, because, she was really, really funny. She was a really nice lady. But the patients would make comments about her. If she wasn't there, they'd say, oh, I don't like it when she comes, or, don't send her again. They just had this issue with her, but she was excellent. She was brilliant. She was better than some of the nurses, to be honest, in terms of the dressings and knowing her stuff and wound care and all of that. She was absolutely amazing, and she was so, so dedicated to the role. But they just still used to, it was just the nitpicking of little that didn't, oh, she's too rough. No, she's not, like, not at all. She was really, really good at her job. So obviously this was during Brexit. And during Brexit, I'd gone on an insight visit to Ripley Community Hospital, but they had a minor injuries unit. And I remember going into the staff room, and it was the day of like I think the vote or the outcome, I can't remember. And they were talking about it in the staff room. And then like it, when the conversation kind of goes round, and then it kind of gets to you. And then before I could even open my mouth, whoever who was talking was just like, oh, well, her opinion would be completely different on this. And I just thought, you just get sick of it. I just think those are things that I just don't like to bring into the workplace. And so sometimes I think it might come across that I'm being passive, but it's not worth it to be labelled as an aggressive black woman, because that's what it will turn into. The last placement, the management placement, Ilkeston Community Hospital with the district nurses, they were really, really nice. Again, it was brilliant there. They were absolutely great. But I think the difference there was I did a lot of the time work with other staff, but their staff were young. So it was completely different, and they were just, again, so nice. And I got to experience some of that nice treatment. I remember the one day it was snowing really badly, and me and the other nurse were at a house, and then the sister comes, and she's like, I've come because you need to go home now because it's going to get really bad. And she just sent me home. She's like, no, don't do anything, you just go. And they treated me so, so well. But I was still under sort of awaiting an outcome for the extenuating circumstances. That got rejected, and I only had 8 weeks to complete the course, so I didn't get to complete the course, and then that was the end of it. I just feel like the university, they didn't care, and I really regret that decision of me going to that university. I shouldn't have done it. I thought that I knew better. In the 80s, my mum and dad, they've got a really close family friend, and one of their sons had gone to Nottingham University and had said categorically it's like racist. I think he'd not ended up completing his course, and it was something that had always been drummed into me, but I was like, no, I'm going to get my master's, I'm going. And I should have never. I wasted 2 years of my life. I feel like the first time it happened, I was really upset and hurt and confused and all of those things. But by the end of it, I just thought, keep it. I don't want to work for you anyway, or with you. I wouldn't want to do the job anyway. I just wasn't bothered by the end. Of course, I still tried to fight for it. And I contacted the Office of the Independent Adjudicator for Higher Education. They couldn't do anything for me. But yeah, I just didn't care by the end. I just thought, thank God for that. Because I'm never a person who gives up. So it was like they'd actually released me from that, because I would have got in so much trouble with my parents if I would have just gone, do you know what, I don't want to go anymore. It'd be like, oh, Zoe, you've gone and done this thing and now you just don't want to do it anymore. But they'd actually shut me out. So they'd really done me a favour, to be honest, because I think it would have been hell. So I've obviously made the move into education. I'm a secondary school English teacher, but I think the problem's still the same. So I don't know. I don't really know what happened in terms of Bridget, where that occurred. I've finished the course. Well, they chucked me out in the March. And then what I wanted to say about that as well is, I remember I think it was like 6, 8 weeks left of this placement, and I said to them, I'm going to do another appeal. Please, can I just stay on the placement just to finish it? And then, and I'll just wait for that to happen. And they were like, no, no. And they actually banned me. I was banned from the university and the placement area. They said, you cannot go. You cannot step foot inside. Yeah, awful. So I've gone into education. I'm an English teacher in secondary schools. I'm currently working across different schools through an agency. And so what happened was I finished the course in the March and I started the course in September. I don't know what happened. Again, it was a friend actually. I think I had a friend who I worked with at Sainsbury's because I'd still kept on working at Sainsbury's throughout doing the nursing. So I used to do that in the week and do Sainsbury's all weekend. And I had a friend there and she said, I'm going to go and do my teacher training. I'm going to be a science teacher. And I thought, I could probably do that. So, because I've got my English degree. So I went online, didn't give it any thought, didn't do any applications. Then August came, 2 weeks before I was going to Barbados. And I thought, do you know what? I'm going to apply. And literally it pinged more or less straight back. Can you come in for an interview? So I went in for the interview. They offered me the place to do the teacher training. I did it. It did have its difficulties as well. It wasn't as bad as the nursing, but it just wasn't pleasant in the fact that I'm always being undermined. You know, there's always the assumption, even now I'm qualified, that I'm a teaching assistant or I'm still a trainee teacher. So yeah, it's not been great, to be honest. And recently, actually, it's not been great. I've had quite a few incidents so far this year in terms of racism and teaching. It's going to sound really bad, but to know that it's mostly, black and ethnic minorities being affected by COVID, it just doesn't surprise me because I feel like we always get the short end of the stick in this country. I really do. So it really doesn't shock me. Of course, we'll be affected. A lot of the time we work harder and, our living conditions are poorer. How can those two things go together? That shouldn't exist, but it just doesn't shock me, to be honest. I've lost quite a few members of my family through the COVID pandemic. And yeah, it just doesn't shock me. I don't think there is anything to be done differently. There's nothing new that needs to happen. Actually, we just need to start implementing the policies that are already in place, is what I think. But that's not going to happen. So I think, really, for me, if this is really controversial, what I'm going to say. I don't think any black, Asian or ethnic minority people should go into the NHS as it is. I just don't think they should. And then they'll change something. I really do. If we just go, no, I don't want to be part of that, they're going to do something. But it's just because we keep just feeding into this system that's not for us. It was not made for us. It was made off our backs. I just don't get it. You make me feel like I don't belong here. So I think that's the only thing, because the things that need to be in place are already in place. It's just the fact that we don't take any notice of them. Until the situation is resolved, don't do it. Nothing is going to happen. If we're providing this constant stream of employees, of workers, nothing's going to change. There has to be a problem. That is the only time that problem is going to be solved. If actually there is nobody to do this job, there was nobody. Think about the problem at the beginning of the NHS. That's the same problem, and you've treated us like rubbish, and that's what really, it doesn't get on my nerves. But recently there's been shows on about racism within the NHS, and they always show these like older nurses. There's never anyone young on there, so that gives me the impression that this isn't an existing problem. Yes, it is. And I think that's another reason why I was not allowed to complete my studies, because my dissertation was based on racism within the NHS. I'd only got into the planning stages, and it was very, very difficult in terms of getting someone to supervise that. So I just automatically ended up with the one black lecturer to supervise this dissertation. So I was going to look at racism within the NHS in terms of I think there's been a massive decline, hasn't there, in terms of people from black and ethnic minority groups going into the NHS, people from other countries in Europe going into the NHS. And why? Why is there this problem? Because we used to infiltrate the NHS, and now we don't, you still see a lot of black and ethnic minority groups within the NHS, but obviously these statistics are saying this. So I was really interested in that. I was really interested in the fact that actually there's little chance of promotion within the NHS if you're black or from an ethnic minority group. So it was just the starting stages of that, and I think that they didn't like that either, because that was potentially going to give me a voice. I feel really disappointed in how I was treated. I didn't deserve it, and it made me think about loads of things that I've never even thought about. Like, where do I belong? Am I really British? And now I do, and you do hold it within you. I think as soon as my kids have finished school, will I still be here? No, I don't want to live in this country. If this is what we're about, then I don't want to be here. I think, I'd be stupid if I said, right, I'm going to Canada, no one's racist. No, I know that they're not, but at least I'm probably going to be paid a bit better because you paid so poorly. You treated like rubbish, so where is the reward there? What, in just doing your job? No, I don't think it means the racists have won at all because you need me. They need us. And I think now, actually, it's worse, isn't it? What I've done's worse because you could have had me in the NHS. Now you've got me in teaching, and I'm teaching your children. So that's even worse, I think. So they've not won at all. They'll need to go to the hospital at some point. That patient who said he didn't want me, he ended up having to have me in the end. He ended up really liking me in the end. He ended up hugging me when he left. He didn't change his views, but, maybe just one person. But I shouldn't have to prove myself. I think the George Floyd scenario, it's just something I'm not surprised about. I just feel that I'm just completely desensitised to all of these things. I've never ever watched the video. I've seen, screenshots of it. I've never watched it. I don't watch anything like that. I don't, all of those films, Django, 12 Years a Slave, all that new one, I don't watch anything like that. I refuse to watch it. I know that stuff's gone on, but I don't want to see it. But in terms of the George Floyd situation, of course that happens. It happens in this country. It's an institution. It's not built for us, so of course it's not going to work for us. I think what keeps me strong and what keeps me going is the fact that and we shouldn't think like this in the fact that it was worse before, so now it's better. But I think that, my parents came here for a reason. So I don't want to waste that opportunity at all because it's, a very privileged opportunity. So I don't want to waste that. That's what keeps me going. What keeps me going is, making my kids actually better than me. At the moment, I'm trying to get my daughter into grammar school because I don't want her to experience the same issues that I've had. We're not going to eradicate that. She's going to have to go through it whether she likes it or not. But it's going to be a bit better for them. And that's what keeps me going, the fact that I'm probably going to witness that.